I haven't. I put it back on the table, I think. I haven't. Anybody see a phone with a red case? Put it back on the table. There it is. I think. Okay. I haven't. All right. See a phone with a red case? Put it back on. There it is. I think. Oh, you found it. Attic has found it. Okay. Where's that coming from? I haven't. All right. See a phone with a red case? There it is. Oh, you found it. Attic has found it. That's me. Where's that coming from? I haven't. All right. See a phone with a red case? There it is. There we go. Oh, you found it. Attic has found it. That's me. Where's that coming from? I haven't. Let's make sure where that's coming from. Okay. Check. Good, yeah. So you want to put that on the, just put it in front somewhere? For the middle? Good. Now I've got a hum. Can everyone hear me? Everyone can hear this okay? All right, welcome everyone. I guess I'll formally start. So, welcome to the XR and Immersive Storytelling Reception, Mixer, and Panel. And I'm happy to say this is the first time we've been able to get some cooperation from the Producers Guild of America, which I've been a member of for 15 years in San Diego. Hopefully we can have more of these. And the Television Academy of Arts and Sciences. So making a bridge to Hollywood, production community, and the people that are doing immersive and XR for the entertainment industry. I'm Stuart Valco. I am on staff here at UCSD. I work for the Center for Astrophysics and Space Sciences as a project manager and a science communications producer. I work with Professor Brian Keating, who's the Chancellor Distinguished Professor of Physics. And he has a podcast called Into the Impossible, which I also produce. And we are proud to be the lead institution for the Simons Observatory Collaboration, which is the largest, most advanced cosmology observation experiment ever done, looking at the Big Bang, the origin of the universe. And the podcast has blown up to the top 1% of podcasts in science and natural subjects. And we also work with the Arthur C. Clarke Center for Human Imagination, which studies the neuroscience of imagination and mashes up science fiction, science, and sponsors research in space exploration and related things that Arthur C. Clarke's legacy is interested in. So I taught this first course / seminar series on immersive and XR. This building, part of its mission is to be a collision point for industry and students in the university. And the 4th floor is the Office of Innovation and Commercialization. And we also have a sprouting immersive program that's ramping up here. And it's sponsored by the Office of Innovation and Commercialization, which is instrumental in fostering the startup ecosystem at UCSD. Thanks to my colleague, Greg Horowitz, to help me put all this together. He's the director of innovation for the university, and he's the person that agitates, and as Atticus, my son, was saying, he's the searcher. So he's going out and finding opportunities for these kinds of collaborations for the startup ecosystem in San Diego and UCSD. We had a bunch of speakers I want to acknowledge that we had throughout the course. So you're going to meet Dominique and Neil a little bit later. They run the visualization labs on campus. And we had Dr. Eric Veary, who goes back to the very beginnings of VR and has done research on headsets and eye tracking and VR sickness with pilots. And now he's doing research using VR as the test environment in neuroscience. He also is a flight surgeon and was the doctor for the zero gravity mission with Stephen Hawking. So interesting, couldn't be here. We had Jason Yim, who's the founder and CEO of Trigger, which is an AR agency, media amongst us, overlapping stuff. We'll talk about that. We had Greg Catano, who's also instrumental in the New Media Council, I think it was past co-president in the Media Council. And with the Producers Guild of America, he just got a new job at Medici in LBE. And I had Krista Kim, who is an artist, digital artist, and works on digital worlds and digital humanism. And that was our speaker series. And now we have all of you. So this is the cave that you're going to see later from above. And that's one of the rooms in the visualization lab and studio. And that's Dr. Smith, who's going to be here in a little while.
Hello, buddy.
Doing a graduation of one of his classes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I thought I would just kind of point out just really quickly where we've come from. I kind of was thinking about this today. I remember, because I was selling computers out of a computer store a long time ago, and one of the last things I sold was an IBM PCXT system for $4,000. And that was like a normal amount of money to spend on a PC. And that was an IBM PCXT with like 100 megabyte hard drive and, a megabyte of memory. And that was around the same time that the Mac came out. I remember this commercial. I don't know,
Hello, my name is Betty fucking Doodles.
Does anyone know it? Does anyone not know it? Right, that was a famous commercial, 1984. So it's kind of interesting. This is another one of these kind of milestones because if you think about this is some picture that I just screen grabbed and someone was where all these devices that we've kind of lived through a lot of these generations. From a Walkman and a boombox and a GPS and a video camera and all mashed together into an iPhone, and now we've got the iPhone strapped to your face. What do you want to call it? So we'll have to we got to discuss that a little bit, right? And that brings us to today's panel, which I'm going to introduce everybody. I'll make a shot at introducing them. They can fill in more about themselves. Yes, Atticus. Okay. More coaching. He will give you notes. He is not shy. He will give us all notes. First, I want to introduce Chris Tomes, who is a UCSD alum, and he really helped me put these people together and make this happen. Thank you very much. He is a VP of Creative at Disney TV Studios.
Oh, can you even hear us?
Found a video of you, and you had a quote that said, "A people's job is to make choices. And the best thing is to rely on is your experience and things you believe in." I thought that was a really good quote. You could elaborate on that a little bit more. And in 2019, this is without embarrassing you, he said, "Now storytellers right, where there's so much content being produced, where it really was a kind of a golden age." He's a multi-Emmy winning creative executive, and he really works to enable creators to visualize and pitch and tell their stories. But he's also a very accomplished producer in his own right, and he's now interested in Web3 creation and the potential of communities to produce in a community economy ecosystem. So we'll talk about more there. And you came from ABC Studios, and you did ABC original scripted materials and shorts way back when. The digital Oscar experience. I totally remember the digital Oscar experience when it was a multi-screen where you could see the shorts on your iPad and you could do it on your iPhone. You could watch TV and you get the backstory. It was very complicated. And not to mention, you started out with Saban, which is Power Rangers. Is it a lock? And so that's some stories about that with Power Rangers.
I
And
got
then
no boo
next,
boo skin like
Eric
la
Shamrock.
la la.
So hello, Eric.
No, no, no.
Eric
When I
is
go
the
up,
EVP,
look.
higher than VP,
Hey, Max.
EVP,
No
Global Head of
crap.
Entertainment for Media
It's
Monks.
a
So Media Monks is
hard
a
They wonder how when I go up like that.
XR for branding. It's part of a big conglomerate, 9,000 employees all over the world, 150
Yo,
LLMs. That's pretty impressive.
we back in the
Must feel. So great perspective from that. And you were saying in some quote on the website that we are in a new era of digital advertising, marketing, and technology, and that AI is changing everything you know about marketing. That's like the front and center thing on the website now, right?
When I go up like that without
So I talked about virtual production in our class. What is it? It's on your LinkedIn. That's all you need. What is it? Well, you'll have to correct me. Don't believe in LinkedIn. That's all I need. Producer. Previs or camera, simulation. Advanced Creative Technology Group at DreamWorks, and he spearheaded the studio's motion capture and real-time technology initiative. So you've got a lot of experience in visual effects and all the things that go into XR. Next, we have Joe Gill, who's really easy to introduce because all I get from you when I introduce you is I can't describe what I do, but it's great to be part of such a fantastic team. So it's secret because you work for Lucasfilms and no one can. I can't even say that. I shouldn't forget. Cancel that.
But that's sus.
Yeah, right. He's a special.
Well, you're sus.
He's kind of knows what's going on under the hood of all this stuff.
Sus.
The pipelines, the software stacks, the really nitty gritty details of the VFX world. And I like to emphasize to people that are interested in XR, this is from the VFX industry. I mean, this is all things that the movie business really pioneered. And finally, also easy to introduce is John Canning.
Pretty sus.
So I will not tell you how far back I know John. I won't admit how many years that is, but
I said you guys are sus.
That's a critical mass of people that we know in common because we've crossed paths a lot. He's a virtuoso producer. He can do it all. I mean, he can shoot, he can edit, he can, do the budgets, do the schedules, he can do the creative.
I don't know.
Now he's working for AMD.
But like you guys, honestly, super duper sus.
You have a job? You have actually a full-time job? Because he doesn't want to do. He likes to be free, and he's a really creative guy. But he really he worked for Digital Domain. I knew him since he worked. Where was that? You were working for Microsoft. Microsoft. You worked for Yahoo, right? Yeah, Yahoo. So I totally remember Yahoo had this massive studio complex, and they were doing interactive TV, and John was producing TV shows for Yahoo when that was supposed to be then, and it's now a little bit later than it was supposed to happen, but no, like all happened. Digital Domain.
Excuse me.
I remember all the digital Hollywoods we were at. We must have been to 20 digital Hollywoods. It's just incredible the amount of change in the time I've known you. So now you're in the chip business, which is really weird. But AMD, everyone knows Intel, everyone knows NVIDIA. So AMD definitely needs a little bit of help with their, industry developer relations, which is kind of what you're doing. Yeah. The silicon powers everything. So I will start. I'm just going to keep it to it like a discussion. We're not going to have any formal presentation. We will discuss it. You can ask questions. We'll keep it loose. There's a microphone there if you have trouble hearing him. And The first thing, I want to talk about, which is the obligatory Apple Vision Pro discussion. So, and you can take it in any order, but is it a big deal? Is it a breakthrough? Is it so some people think it's just the worst thing. It's a flop. It's a huge mistake. No one's going to ever wear goggles. Why did Apple do this? Scott Galloway, who I kind of follow, Prof. G, says it's Apple's first flop, and Tim Cook should have never greenlit it. What do you guys think?
All right, you go. You start.
Do we need to use the mic or no?
Can you hear us? Who's awake?
We can put the mic on it, like, and just put it in the middle here, and it'll pick it up. There you go. But you can use the mic.
I can't say it's a flop. I think they're smart in how they target it. The price point, I think they know exactly what they're not targeting a consumer. They're targeting an enterprise B2B level user who has the money to spare. I've already been on multiple calls this week, trying to figure out how we're going to use it in multiple projects. So it's just a business use case, not a consumer use case, which is a deviation from that. All their products are consumer targeted. With maybe the Mac Pro kind of an exception, but this is explicitly an enterprise device, and so.
Do you all agree with that, or?
I think in terms of their targeting, their price points, consumers, there will be consumers using it, but in terms of like who their core target is, it's an enterprise.
But that's what I'm fascinated about, because I mean, you know that because you're having those business conversations. But I looked at, like, you look at all the marketing, and it has like casual, like I'm sitting on the couch wearing one of these docking people, and I'm like, none of the positioning was enterprise focused. It was all like very warm, touchy feely Apple. But
I think the price point signals that it's
it
not.
screams that, right? That's what I think is fascinating about it. I mean, I ran into an Apple employee, and luckily I found out they were an Apple employee before I really gave my opinion. But no, he said, well, what do you think? And I said, we're at a time that we needed somebody like Apple to reinvigorate this.
Yeah.
Right? Because Meta, when Facebook bought Oculus, good news is they bought Oculus. Bad news, they bought Oculus. But they helped inject in the industry forward. HTC, God love them, can't find with both hands. But the XR business was languishing. It was doing Magic Leap nowhere, HoloLens dead, like HTC.
And that's why I would say that like that with Apple, like literally putting the stake in the ground is huge. Like your question is like, I think it is huge because they were willing to say, hey, we're going to go here. We're going to release this. It's a big reveal for our developers conference. And here's all of the, whether you can take it any way you want to, whether it's a marketing thing or whatnot, but all of the tech from all the years, it does feed into now we have this. It's a version 1. It's early. Like you have to remember, it's early days. Let the developers come out, figure out some cool things that they could do, test it out. And it's not, if people are saying, oh, well, like, I don't want to wear ski goggles on my face outside. Like my friend in New York's like, if I see someone wearing that on the screen, I'm going to just like hit them. Yeah. But, I think it is exactly what Canning said. It's like, I felt it was like a, like reinvigorating, inspiring, something that someone like Apple can only do really, and see, let's beta this and see what happens. I'm interested what version 5 is going to look like.
Yeah, I'm
the watch.
Exact same page. And I'm actually a bit more optimistic. I think we're coming out of the Gartner hype cycle. We're hitting the plateau. The Quest is actually doing relatively well. It's 20 million headsets, active user base. So I think the market sort of course corrected. In 2017, it crashed hard. And 18, 19 dug itself out. I think the Quest Pro, Meta's already seen 2 other headsets coming out. So there's a clearly, a growing user base. I think Apple coming in, a 900-pound gorilla. This is the thing that maybe they'll lose their shirt for a few years. They're Apple. They have a lot of shirt to lose.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, it's not out yet, right? Like this was the announcement, and certain companies in the room that remain nameless may have been involved with this from early on.
Well, it was in the announcement, right? That it's launching with Disney Plus on it.
Go get people much better, doing it with Unity, I think is super smart. Like I was in fear that they were gonna go a development route that was some other direction, which builds on what a lot of XR developers have been working with.
Why do you like Unity so much? Just to clarify,
It's a platform,
over Unreal. Yeah, okay.
right? It's a broadly accepted development platform. It's not to learn a new coding language. There's a lot of developers already focused on that are outside the XR business and the XR business. So, I can't say it's a flop because it's not. Like it's the precursor of the thing and use the market. The one thing that I did have a figure of was they did the exact same thing I did. Remember the blue whale?
Mhm. Made the expectations completely unrealistic. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say that, looking at it from a different point of view, it'll be interesting for Apple, who by the way, is not a computer company. They are a lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
A lot of their technology is not the best technology. What they are great at is paradigm shift in scale.
Yeah.
They hit the market in a way which, like the person sitting on the couch going, I'm amazing when I'm wearing it. That's what they want. And that's what they're looking to do is change the consumer behavior around them.
Mhm.
Now, I think what they have a long way to go on is how does augmented reality help my mom? She doesn't give. I'm not even gonna say. She does not care. How do they get her to care? So Disney Plus is not going to get her to care. What is going to get her to care is when she's able to look at video experience of her granddaughter's birthday. That will snap her mind. So how do they get to that point? They know. They've got a plan.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see this roll out, but it is the consumer uptake of that. And frankly, I'm more interested by the usage of it down the line as creators, as people who are going to change industry, who are in engineering, who are building worlds. I now use this device when I'm working in a way I have never used the tool before.
Your
That'll-
4,000 huge IBM computer, you don't carry that with you.
I don't have to. It just does all
And I
those things.
completely agree with Chris is that it's Apple. They have a play on, you have to think about what is the user doing? What are we looking at that the user will become more, accustomed to? That's what's happening. Just like, how we're all
Right.
getting that.
They can use, like, if someone's doing dishes and wearing it, and it's part of like their life, that's when you fit.
Yeah,
That's
I think,
when
I
it's
think they're doing foundational. I actually think it's a sort of on and off. Actually, for one videos that we're doing, Snap, IG, TikTok, using lenses and filters and stuff, they're training an entire generation, 2 billion users on how to use augmented reality without using the words. Sometimes it's whimsical. It's almost don't even think about it. So I think socially, I was doing foundational level training and education, societal level, that Apple will now hopefully.
So yeah, they never used the word metaverse. They never used the word VR, right? Or virtual reality, never once. So was there anything about it in particular that technically made you go, wow, that's a breakthrough, or that's foundationally different? I mean, it's the sum of all parts, but was there anything about it that you thought was particularly distinguishing?
I mean, it was funny. It was sort of like a catch-22 where they, like, you could see the eyes, but then later on you dig a little bit further and it's not your.
It's not your actual eyes. It's a projection of your eyes.
There's any like, wow, that's a technological advancement. I think it's a build upon everything that they've done, like from the sound and all of those things. So, I think where some advancements are going to happen, and this is just like, it's been the same for VR forever. It's just like, how long can you have it on? If people are complaining about 2 hours, right? And then the other thing is,
Battery.
yeah, batteries too. And then it's also like, how far can you push it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what can you see in that? And so I think those are the things that we've been grappling with forever, and maybe, you guys. know that.
So do you think that that HMDs in a form factor approximately like that will become a mass market?
No.
No, okay.
Because I think it still has to push on the ergonomic aspect of it, right? Like, but my point being is that, Meta is going through whatever transitional stage they're going through, but the continual big money, I don't care if I lose money, but I've got to push the research, the material design and pictures forward is the thing that has to happen, right? Like, I want my Oakleys to be able to do this. They're not there yet. And you remember the Bose
Mm-hmm.
sunglasses, that had, okay, yeah, they're awesome, right? Like, if you could then make those that I had to either go fully opaque or see partially through, the material science, the ergonomics still have to be put forward. But that takes money and research and time, and it takes somewhat compelling, we're gonna put it out, we're gonna fail, we're gonna learn, we're gonna move it forward. So is that form factor that much better? No, but
We forget that the timeline, like, Paul Lucky Six was 2012.
Yeah.
And they were by 2014, so we're less than 10 years from the start of the goal. So, and the Quest Pro and the Vision Pro now are light years ahead of what was less than 10 years, right? So,
I think there's a cultural barrier too that it's gonna take time. So, you showed the images of people with the Walkman, and they had the headphones on, and even people back in the 70s when they had the great big headphones, which now back in style. My gym. But that's a thing I see people with earbuds and I know not to talk to them, right? Maybe they just have them on noise canceling, but I know that they don't want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a cultural thing that's going to start happening. The reason you can see the eyes through an eyeless faceplate is because they know they have a big problem, which is that we've already got a culture that's super isolated of social media and technology. So are you going to solve that problem by making people disappear further into their closet and just say goodbye to the world? So I think that they're saying, we're going to put a stake in the ground, and we have a lot of work to do to bring people together in a way that they've never brought people together before. Because Apple is all about people together. That is their brand. It is about, look at me. It is not about, I'm going to go hide. So I think that they're not quite there yet, and their brand marketing has to be there. I think they use it as an A/B test. Put it out and go, okay, note to self, don't do that.
Atticus, would you like to ask a question?
So one, you said that your grandparents, you don't want to say grandparents. I'm pretty sure in the talk they said that there's gonna be a feature where you can see your kid's video and all around screen with panorama. Then what do you think about the prices for the Apple headphones or VR? Because the headphones are $500. Your headset is $2,500, obviously, which is, I think, pretty a good price for like the new Oculus and the headset. So what do you think about that?
So-
somebody's fucking.
Yeah. But that brings up the Vision Pro versus Oculus, $3,500, $500. It-
That's what Eric is being.
Yeah.
And being a media monk, being in a board agency, talking to brands and things like that, I think that price point puts it in the Barjo high-end headset design simulation marketplace. It's a bit of a disconnect, but again, that's the price they announced in the market. Is that the price it's going to sell when it?
Yeah, I think brands and B2B enterprise really, I think is primary, but I think also I want to make sure, like Chris said, I think it's also creator part.
Yeah.
A lot of creators, I would consider the business market.
Yeah.
And so I think the creator company, which is really smart, they're aware of like TikTok, they're aware of where media trends are right now. So getting it in the hands of creators.
I was impressed that it can do 3D binocular video recording, right? Because I remember The Nokia, what was the Nokia 360 stereo camera was $50,000 and that wasn't that long ago. But these cameras were very expensive. Moving on from the HMDs, I think we spent enough time on that. We'll see what happens. I wanted to know from each of you, you've got a lot going on. What are some of the projects that you're working on now that you're excited about? What's one particular example of a project? We've got a good cross section. Anybody can start. Maybe we can start with Christina because you're involved in production technology. Is there, okay, is it secret or? Because I mean, everybody's really interested in, yeah.
It's not a specific project that I would say, but what I am excited about is that I am in a position now where I can kind of see the entire landscape of everything that is currently coming to fold, from Vision Pro to Deception to different workflow tools that AI is like helping. There's a lot going on, and what I'm excited about is I'm not at one particular place to just like try and figure that out, but I can see the landscape and kind of connect the dots and figure out, okay, where are we going? What's happening like now to like 2 years? And then for me, I get excited about like 3 to 5 years. But I have the realism part of my brain, producer brain, is I want to see that kind of made, like I want to see it applied, executed, and then out to market. No specific.
Does anybody else have any projects they can discuss and? Not even these, just anything in the immersive world. Could be AR, could be XR, could be.
Yeah, sort of referring, I can't name the brand, big automotive brand. They came to us actually looking to use Flex Pros for visas and for dealership for onboarding, and now with the Vision Pro announcement, that's several thousand dealerships.
So it is, you might be able to go to a dealership and or a virtual showroom and.
Test drive it. For headsets, you want to do headsets, so whether we set up in the parking lot, and say the field.
I think that's the interesting thing now is it's just, there's so many interesting part of how you visualize it. Right, like the headsets are one aspect, you know, are you doing AR, VR, but also the big sphere thing, we're gonna go look at it. You know, putting somebody in a room, the virtual production technology, leveraging that, but it's sort of the holodeck moment, right? Like what can I throw on all these walls? Can I react to it? Can I feel like I'm in a different environment? And I think that's interesting that we're pushing really hard on all the visualization techniques. The amount of screen tech now that's coming out that's 3D visualization without glasses. That, you know, you've got laptops, you've got bigger screens that full 3D, immersive 3D that's good and no glasses.
Ripping on that, I don't know if this qualifies, but I think it's technically immersive. Using Sphere, that's what we're doing. So we're working with MSG Sphere, which is the big dome in Vegas.
Big is an understatement.
Largest screen in the world, highest resolution.
16K.
They shoot 8K natively to capture. We're in post-production on a number of big projects.
Did you see Chilton just released his camera?
I did.
18K sensor.
What camera is that?
They custom built a camera.
Cosm did or?
And the
Andrew
short film is
Chilton.
Huh.
MSG.
If anybody doesn't know, the MSG Sphere, MSG stands for Madison Square Garden, and that is a venue that is just being finished in Las Vegas. You can see it from space. It's how many meters in diameter? It's, 100 meters in diameter.
Inside it's
It's basically the size of a basketball stadium, of a major arena, and the entire interior of the sphere is a screen. Now, I wasn't sure, the exterior screen or is it projection map? Oh, it's LED screen too. Oh, it's for the exterior, okay.
But the way it's designed in seats is you effectively have the screen wrapped in such a way that unless you like turn completely around and look this way, but it is a three-quarter, yeah, it's a three-quarter.
So that's an interesting aside discussion. Is that a new, I've been advocating that's sort of an immersive medium unto itself, ultra large screens.
Well, their sound technology is
Oh,
cutting
oh,
out.
the sounds, yeah,
So you
better.
could be,
Have you gotten to see, have you gotten to get, yeah?
um, it's like you're over on that far end and they localize language.
Yeah.
So you could be hearing Japanese and I'm hearing
Next to you.
English.
Yeah, next,
You can be Japanese, listen to Japanese, the guy next to you. is
No
French.
kidding, yeah.
See, this is, and I heard about this.
it's a projected, yes, and they're a massive amount of drivers as opposed to just big drivers. And the idea is that the sound is, you can think of listening to a chamber orchestra at rock, the fidelity of a chamber orchestra at rock volume. So the audio from me to her is the same as from me to him. And so you get
No
that.
matter where you are, it's the same.
Yeah. And it's directional, so this section may be one language, that section, different language, that section, different language. The seats are 4D, so they're rumble seats, things like that.
Sound.
Yeah, so it's a programmable experience that is daunting in all the aspects of it.
The beamforming spatial audio, by the way, was developed at a lab in Atkinson Hall. Yeah, Peter Otto is the professor that originated that technology.
See, super fascinating because I mentioned earlier the idea of like isolation, having social experiences. So to be able to have community, but have a tailored experience in that same, so unlike the movie theater where it's all darkened and everyone has kind of the same thing, but everyone's been sitting in the back, there's a large hat in front of me, I have to look around it, I'm on the exit aisle and everything's been sorted. The idea is to create optimal experience for every individual, but yet I'm still hanging out with Jeff and we're still there together. So that's a good blend. And that's, I think, really good immersive design because it's taking into account you need humanity and then yet you want technology to make the experience like something worth the money that you're going to get, which is going to be a pricey thing.
Yeah. Well, I know sports is a major use case where you can go to the Super Bowl or, a giant event as if you're there in the MSG Dome. But this also begs the question of production technology. Maybe you could talk a little bit about but when you're producing for these mediums, it's a different ball game, right? So obviously Lucasfilms has done a lot of, games and virtual production and, what's under the hood and what can we expect and what should students be studying to tool up for this? Yeah.
So my role is a little different where these guys are sort of overseeing the production of content and the shaping of technologies for use cases. And really what I do and have done since I graduated is basically by combining and, for lack of a better word, distorting and perverting technology that they would use for the sports arena to find a way to work with Alejandro Inarritu when he did Blood and Sand, which is an AR/VR experience. So for us, it was really exciting that these guys and this university put these insane development builds for all this amazing technology. But the part where it becomes exciting to the production people is where artists, creators, inventors, innovators like you guys, which is honestly why I'm here, is to see you folks see something and then use it in a different way.
Mhm.
And I mean, this goes all the way back to think of cave people. There was one guy who put his hand up and blew the outline of his hand on the cave wall. And then someone came around and was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And suddenly you have 70 handprints. Fine. And then a talented creative came along and was like, and they took a stick and they painted an animal. And then they painted a bison. And all the hand people went, I never thought of that. Holy cow. Turkey. And so maybe it became quasi-religious or magical or a transformative experience for them. But for people like me who are sort of technocrats, the excitement is the things that we're talking about. Who knows what happens inside of your mind? And the seeds that are planted by, because honestly, like how many of us are going to go to Vegas to see this giant stadium? And what happens inside of it? Yeah, it's going to be, maybe some of us will go and see the experience, but to experience the tools, to have the transformative moment of looking at the same way I'm assuming when you look at paintings or you hear music and it changes you in some way, it's transformative like a virus. The way that you guys then take that experience and manipulate that tool to then create something that we never would have thought of. The moment when Previs started way back in the day, sitting with David Fincher and him feeding us mercilessly like we were on a Roman slave ship to get the scene in Fight Club where the plane rips open and the seats come out to be perfect. His devotion to using existing technologies in new and completely unforeseen and extremely uncomfortable ways for us was fantastic.
Mhm.
The things that he made, the subtleties that he put into it. We'll never notice how many times the chair shakes. Next time you see it, you'll think about it before the people get sucked out of the plane at Fight Club. But for David, it was transformative to have the ability to do that. And then to see Previs grow to now the point where we're working in this giant virtual set with people all over the world, with art directors and the director of photography, and with everyone doing nothing but wearing highly modified Oculus headsets. We all sit there in this magical non-event. There's nothing. There's just pixels. It's magic. And have this person go, make that doorway a foot taller. Push that wall back 2 feet. It should be 5 o'clock in the afternoon. No, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. A little cloudy. And then to be standing there with Ewan McGregor and look at it and go, mountains are too tall. Shrink the mountains. Too much. There you go. That was impossible before. People would travel to Tunisia and build this entire thing, and you'd be like, well, that's. But so the technology of using, so when I was at UCSD, hope this won't cause a problem, we used to sneak in to the Navy's visualization centers and put on these like 16-pound SGI goggles, if you remember those things. And we all were connected with a cable to synchronize them, because otherwise the 2 eyes would go out of sync. And it was designed so that people could engineer aircraft carriers and battleships and see where ducting was going to go. That's fine. But we used it to make art and to be crawling around in these virtual environments. But we had to do it between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And it was only because one of us was related to the guy who might have used to run the supercomputer center that we were able to get away with doing this stuff. But that was the nascent beginning of all of these different tools being used in unforeseen ways. So, you know, I kind of sat quietly with the Apple thing, because what's going to happen to me and my kin is that one of you, or a person like you, or Fincher, or Terrence Malick, or one of these high-end creators is going to come in and go, I put these on and they were cool, and I had an idea. And I think it's impossible. And then we do what we call technological improvisation, where the rule in improv. Does anybody know what the rule in improv is? Yes. And so when they come to us and say, I want to do this totally ridiculous, impossible thing, we go, yeah, and that would be awesome. And then we inadvertently opened this door. And so it's a really beautiful sort of coexistence of, you guys do this incredible visualization creation. And then as an even better effect, you create the people who will drive new technologies. Architects who by using this stuff will create spaces in ways that had been, like maybe they'll create physical impossible designs, but are beautiful. You know, there'll be artists who will create whole worlds that are impossible, but are now doable. And then it sort of feeds back and forth between giant creation of creators, innovators, artists, dreamers, who then create a dream space that then, thank God, the 5 of us get to live and play inside of. So, you know, for me, the headset is just, it'll happen. Like, working with Apple is, I don't anymore. Working with Apple is super difficult because they're really super secretive about it. So you just get stuff and you go, what is this? And they're like, well, it's for the thing. It's like, yeah, we still don't know what the thing is. Oh, the thing is the iPad. Oh, good to know. Okay, great. But you don't find out until you build the UI or UX. And then you have to go through rounds and rounds of Steve Jobs, which is, I miss. But it's terrible because he's brilliantly and ruthlessly interested in where he's going. And it's the same experience with high-end people. It's their integrity and their lack of compromise that drives forward technology in ways that are unpredictable, but incredibly fertile. So that's what I'm excited about, is the stuff that is, you're going to think of it. And for whatever reason, you're going to have a budget, or somebody will pick you up as a passion project and go, let's do this thing. And you'll do something that will completely revolutionize things. So that, like with Magic Leap, when you see the whale, I don't know how to see this thing. It was so awesome and promising, and then the real product was like, because it lacked that moment of the gear mesh, someone who is creative to bring forth some completely unforeseen thing. So, yeah, that's what's really exciting for me, is terrifying, unknown, unanticipatable, unquantifiable excitement of the new.
So one of the things that is touted as new-ish is what Meta calls the metaverse. And what Apple didn't mention. And it's this idea of a world where people can be in that's a virtual landscape of some sort. So the question is, what is that? And where's it going? And there's now a dozen of these kinds of things, right? There's VR chat, there's Horizon World, there's the Sandbox, there's Synomium Place, there's, different companies that have their own version of this. Some of them are so-called open. Some of them are just proprietary. Do you have any comments or, ideas of how that is going to pan out? Is there one that we should be paying more attention to than others? How should innovators, artists, technologists approach these worlds, world building in the worlds? For production, they're great. I mean, you mentioned previs and so forth. You can create entire movies almost, virtually. But what about these worlds? What should we be thinking about?
To go first.
So,
Go, go.
yeah. of
Yeah.
course. The thing, once again, is that to be blunt, the trick to creation is failure. Thomas Edison, I think he made 100,000 different versions of the filament of the light. 100,000. There were teams of people who traveled the globe bringing back the dodo so that some guy in Menlo Park or wherever it was could light it up and go, nope. So, and so there are all these different iterations.
Mm-hmm.
And through users and interactions and feedback, there'll be some sort of evolution, but the evolutionary process isn't linear at all. It's surprising and shocking. So,
Well, and I think to that end, we're early on that, and there's two sides to it, which is, there's the Apple side of it, when they create products, which is, no one needs this. So we have to invent a reason to use it. We have to motivate them. And then there's it's a tool. So we're solving a problem. And I don't think that it's at a center point yet. It hasn't met at the center. And I think it needs to, because once again, I use my mom. She cared.
And she called and
Yeah. Getting messages as I sit here. She, unless her or any of my relatives, or even, my wife, they understand and there's a purpose for it that is going to improve our personal lives. I don't think we have the opportunity to scale with it. And so I think I don't even, working with a company that actually got rid of, say this, they got rid of their
Right. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Clearly, they didn't have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
There was no, it wasn't built into their DNA yet. There was no, I mean, it was disposed of. So it's not there yet. I don't think the purpose of metaverse, other than for companies that want to make money by aggregating people in a virtual space, I don't think for the consumer it's there yet, unless you're playing a game. You're playing Fortnite.
So, two things.
By the way, the rest of you agree to
Do not let Atticus capitalize.
No, seriously.
Okay, sorry.
I was wondering if you were thinking what would have been your mindset was? You think, oh, I can make this, or like, I want to write a story for my future. Or they're thinking like that, or they're thinking like, some other way, especially. And like, I feel like with Apple new everything, I'm starting to not like Apple due to the fact that they just keep adding like these tiny little specs to each phone. I'm like, stay with the iPhone 14 until you actually figure out something that's legitimately better than the last iPhone. Because I like, what's the difference between 12 and the 14? What can you get better? A camera and a rotor and a battery. So what do you think? Why do you think they're doing that? Why do you think they're releasing a new one every year?
I like it.
Well,
And share price, yeah, there's a lot packed in there. And it's funny because the caveman, I love that because I use that in actually conversation around the M word. And, you think about the yearning to tell stories and the canvas to which we told stories on, right? And I use the start with cave paintings, right? Like we needed a canvas and a way to start doing something with that canvas, cave paintings. And we see this constant evolution of, I want to have an environment to tell a story in. You think of a stage play, right? And you think of people on that stage that put on a costume and become somebody different. And they may even become a different person or gender, or, and they may even become a creature. And then we started introducing digital tools to start doing the same kinds of things, but in a broader context, and maybe be able to do it across space and time. Yeah, I look at gaming. I look at the Cabo Hotel and MUDs, and I look at Second Life, and I go to World of Warcraft, and Second Life is worlds, and I can build my own worlds, and then I look at all the storytelling that goes on in a World of Warcraft where they're constantly writing stories and inviting you to participate in that play, and then Roblox.
Yeah.
Right, and then the next generation Fortnite engine. I always UFPN. I always get that wrong. It
Do you like for humans?
Enough of that, yeah.
enough of you.
Said that like they're kind of changing your think about things. Do you like have any expectations for how they would be the future, or if Radio Player One will become a real
Ready Player.
Ready Player One will become a real reality?
Well, I mean, I think that's the fascinating thing, right? Is it's interesting where if you take World of Warcraft, it was a group of people writing stories that you come and participate in, and it has a structured universe. You can play in that universe, but it's a structured universe. You can't go outside the boundaries. Roblox, the next generation, the Fortnite creation engine, are putting you in the role of the storyteller and the creator of the world, and opening that up. And what's interesting is Roblox they all had sort of a generally uniform look to it. Oh, that's a Roblox universe. It could be a space one or a cowboy one, but it was a Roblox. The Fortnite creator gets more interesting because you can start really now starting to change the shape of the look of those universes. It's interesting because it's the making you all storytellers and go create your universe and your world and your story, your game, and tell a story. And here's a marketplace that I have a bunch of objects that you can go use and go. And then here's a monetary system built on top of that. So it's interesting. And is it the only one? No, but it's starting to have some interesting elements to that next generation of how are we going to do this? The interesting thing is your Ready Player One. It was the melange of different universes and different systems that could all coexist. And where do we have that today?
So is there any open metaverse standard? No. There's the open metaverse foundation,
But they're not a standard.
but they're not a standards body. So yeah, so there really isn't one now.
You know, like the metaverse standard, like
Yeah, and I actually think we're still prehistoric days with the metaverse. I mean,
Okay.
metaverse as a even pop phenomenon, not, giving Neil Stevenson his Harvard too, became really a pop phenomenon with Zuckerberg 2 years ago, going, we're now metaverse, meta, right? And that's where that arms race started. But I would sort of rip off something from it. I think the metaverse last 2 years, as a company that builds big blocks of it for brands right now, it's basically gaming branded. Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, these are gaming platforms. Roblox launched in 2004, I think, web game. I'm sure the CFO woke up a year ago and said, "What? We're metaverse?" And people making a killing.
Well, that is, I just say, the notion of rebranding is what you see happening over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The first metaverse was a book, because it's in the head, and you're living it as you're reading the page, or as you're hearing a story told around a fire, and you're imagining it because it's being told. So I think it's just a place where you're not physically at, but you are participating in. So what exactly?
Merger. I think why I say it's free. I think AR, VR, I think that whole theme is a box. Right. The digital related to the physical,
That I agree. I think that's the ultimate is like,
the access,
there's no,
right?
it's just
And
like-
then there's the second, right? It is, how are we entering into that environment? How are we interacting in that environment? And we do have, the Open Metaverse Forum is a lot of companies and folks that are basically there to try to make sure we don't fuck it up. Because there are people that are in other forums groups and other parts of the industry, and they're like, oh shit, if we let this thing get out of control, they're gonna go off the deep end.
Yeah.
So a lot of those people participating, what they're doing is they're working on the same thing we're doing across other parts of the industry is, what is the infrastructure? What is the 3D object interoperability?
Yeah.
standard?
Is it
Right.
it's decentralized versus centralized?
It's
And then you ask, depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
Like a different.
privacy and security and identity,
Yeah.
right? Like
Oh.
some of the fundamental building blocks. And you ask if we have something? Absolutely. Anybody been on the internet? Like it is iterations and variations on that theme. Like we're continuing to build on that. The notion of 3D worlds, what is it, Vermal?
Vermal, right?
God love.
Yep.
Um,
Mark Pesci, yeah.
3D objects in a web environment and virtual reality markup language. And it didn't get very far simply because the computational power on your local device was not keeping up and it was harder to do. And you were trying to squeeze a lot of things to a very limited bandwidth. We evolved that concept. But it is that web work of infrastructure and the ability to move bits between point A and point B. It is, if you look at the foundations of what the web was, it was a bunch of researchers saying, we need a way that I can share my research paper with another university institution, and they don't have to log into our servers because that's a security problem, but I need to be able to publish paper.
So let's talk about how this impacts entertainment industry writ large, movies and TV shows. How are you feeling about this? How are you feeling about the future of movies and TV and streaming? You have an opinion? No, you have an opinion about this?
If you define the entertainment industry,
Okay, that's interesting, right?
You could say linear and narrative,
Uh-huh.
or you could say the platform. And it could include linear. Whichever platform. you choose.
So are you feeling the balance starting to tectonically shift, or there's no balance?
I would say that there isn't, I mean, this has been an ongoing conversation with like film, television versus like games. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Games makes way more money, right? It is a actual like good ROI, all the MBAs come out and yes, but there's not really like, here's my example of it. If you haven't watched the show, then you should go watch the show. It's Yellowstone. I binged it.
Mhm.
And it's basically Kevin Costner doesn't want to give it up and will die on the Alamo. That's all I'll say.
Oh, okay, that's a very well
there's a lot
thought
packed in
metaphor.
that.
So, go ahead.
Um, great concern about all of this. Well, this virtual reality in general. We have a society we have huge numbers of depression that's going up and narcissism going up just from social media expanding. If you take the human brain and you put it in a virtual reality environment that you really believe it's in another world, you have much more power over affecting and potentially destroying human beings' minds. And if money is the guiding force behind that, and as you were all saying, technology has been completely driven by money. Basically across the board here, I'm very concerned with the psychological health of our society. And I have a friend who does games, created a game with brain surgeons who practice their surgery over and over again before they're actually in the surgery. They wouldn't kill anybody, so they succeed every time. That's a really good moral use of that type of technology. There's deep psychological healing that comes with this type of technology. But if there's no moral conscience driving the ship, it could just destroy all that.
Moral ethical implications.
I do think there's good math, right? I think people is good math, right? I think that they're I do think a lot of hospitals are using virtual technology for therapy, all the good. But I will give you kind of a sad story of that as well, or a potential sad story. I think South Korea is struggling with video game addiction, and became the first country to come out with its government actually for mandating usage, particularly around cyber cafes or whatever, because they're seeing drops in their GDP and birth rates and everything. So video game addiction became real. So it is throughout a lot of Asia and I'd say even North America. South Korea became the first country to really start trying to regulate it and figure it out. And it helped. And it's actually seen it for rebound. But the flag there is that was on PC and mouse. You put that society or any society at a headset, your point, that society is still goes dark. Basically. So it is something we need to be very in terms of training and actually putting the safety. You can put safety precautions in the headset. Just shuts off after 30 minutes, right? And you start kind of figuring out.
I think, yeah, wow, there's a lot to pack in here. I'm actually you said what projects were you excited about, right? So I spend part of my time helping a nonprofit focused on social emotional learning, leveraging headsets and working with kids at, youth at risk. And a lot of work with, you guys know Skip with
Brave Mind.
working through that to develop a curricula to help kids through some challenging times. And I've looked in various other, and you can do amazing things with this. And I feel like it's one of those things where it's like a hammer. I can bludgeon somebody to death or I can build a house. What do I do? And I, being a technologist for many, many years and being on sort of the forefront of like, we can build a lot of things, but what do we do with it? It's you raising that alarm is exactly what people need to talk about, right? Like we're going to do these things that, the technology's out of the bag, you can't put it back in. But how do we think about it and what do we, as a group, move forward? I mean, a lot of the challenges we see with some of the technology guys is not because the technology is currently evil and sucking them in, it's we have society problems. We have an issue where people who are, in the game, I think, why are they? And we too often say, vilify and in technology and say that's inherently bad because it's doing this to people, and like, why are they going to that direction to begin with? So I think we also need to address that. Look, I previous business before I am now is that I was in business making digital humans.
That was my next question.
I'm
Yeah.
here to tell you, we can scare you, right? I can make a digital human that will fake, and it's amazing, and what we can do with AI to replicate somebody's voice and to be able to replicate somebody's look. And the fact is that every time you go into a public place that has that nice little plaque that says, by entering in here, you waive your rights for digital, like, you should be nervous about that. And I say this because I want people to think about it. It's when I worked with actors and I said, what does your contract say with regards to digital identity? Right? Because it's no longer are you just talking about your likeness, it's your digital identity. But if you negotiate well, you could use that, right? You can put your digital identity to work. You can be somebody that you're not. The amazing part of this technology is that I can now enable somebody to be somebody else. That an industry, be careful, an industry that certain body types and certain tropes would get more jobs and be able to, if I could be a completely different person, and if I'm a good actor, and I can make you believe that I'm a completely different person or a completely different gender or a completely different race, the liberation, an industry that benefited on beauty and certain ages and certain genders, if I can change that, I think that's very powerful. But it's also very scary, right? Like, that's why I said security, identity. These are some of the common things that we have to focus on from an infrastructure standpoint. Because it's important that I go online, I may want somebody else. So what is the verification? How do you know it's me? Do you need to know it's me? How do we have that exchange, right? These are all those kind of fundamental things that you ask into the right questions. Absolutely. And more people need to ask it. And then we need to work on how to address it.
So Eric, that might be a good segue into the intersection of AI with these technologies, because that's part of what you're. Sure. Jennifer.
So environmental social health, social heart, social health for his lives. And I think the easiest way to look at it is actually a quote from the 7th generation product line. With every choice, consider its impact on the next 7 generations. So therefore, if we see our choices through that helps us with the ethical implication of decision making. And I also want to mention think being in America, capitalist society, people to say or demonstrate can reach for max profits while also reaching for max positive impact. The two don't have to be goals. Again, it's
Well, okay, so I'm difficult. I'm a very difficult person, but the worlds that I'm working in are the empowerment and enablement of creatives and creators to make art. So in a sense, the evanescence that drives these people to do these things is maybe one step off from what you're talking about, which is totally key. And the looking down the road is super important to, we can make, no offense, Power Rangers 16, the most popular movie on the planet. By doing, sorry, a little bit of engineering to make it where it's irresistible to people. And they'll have to buy the toy and they'll have to subscribe. So from a corporate perspective, it's incredibly important that they wake up and bear responsibility for getting people, bear responsibility for the long-term impact. But in entertainment, one of the huge challenges to that is that when a movie's made, a corporate entity goes and exists for a moment and makes that film, and at the end of the film, they close it and it's gone forever. For mostly the reason that if something bad happens, then it's just that one entity and they're already gone. So you can't sue them, they're gone. It's this strange mindset, and that treatment of that legal entity passes down to every crew member, where the crew members, are treated kind of like the Jodes and the Grapes of Wrath, where you hire them and they work really hard for you and they're in a union, and the union protects them to some extent and makes you be good. But in production, people are still working 16 hours a day. Even after the deaths of multiple employees, we're still working people like that. I don't work my team like that. I couldn't live like that. I used to work 100 hours a week. We used to map out render times in terms of, we have 96 hours to render this, but we only have to finish it in 5 days. And that's 120 hours. So if we just work this full time and sleep for like 4 hours, we can get it done, which is completely immoral and it's inhumane. And I'm so sorry that I did that, but I've left that job and I've now got a whole new career where on one hand, it's really easy for me to sleep at night, because when a creative goes, hey, I want to do this thing, you know, it's like Vincent, where Vincent Van Gogh goes, I'm going to cut off my ear. And you're like, I don't know, man, that's the best idea, but okay. So for art's sake, we don't see things from a moral perspective, but you are correct. And sorry to speak for you guys, but for entertainment and media, there's really this long-term historical treatment of people and projects and content and ownership in sort of a feudal system. And it's really hard to escape from. And that's actually one of the benefits of working at Lucasfilm. They brought me in to create a continuity across multiple years so that we can break that chain. So there's the beginnings of awareness, but I'll tell you that, you know, I can't speak for you guys, but after, but after 30 years, a lot of people are so uninterested in tomorrow. And it's super important that you ask these questions, because that then sparks the thought, and then you have the more then developed fire version of that spark.
So to take that into a practical application of like, well, where's the friction point for that? Where do you actually start to apply that thinking of having people be thoughtful about planning for the future? You have to look at the market system. And so for big media companies, the plan, I was talking about this earlier, like the annual operating plan, 5-year plan. Those all are fine. Maybe a year-long plan is okay. 5 years is ridiculous. But regardless, it's not a quarter system. Because we report quarterly earnings to Wall Street. So if you want to start changing things, you have to go to Wall Street. Because the way that we report out between, especially here in the United States, between Christmas and then you've got spring and you got Mother's Day and then you got back to school and you've got these rhythms, but regardless, everything is controlled by your earnings and quarterly readout. And so to say, plan for 7 generations, that you have to send that message to the right person and the right people in organizations. And I would argue that people that are creating entertainment is a great place to start because they are the storytellers, and that is an external element. Like even the creators to Disney, I worked in the company for a long time, but I very rarely actually produced anything. Every creator is really hired shotgun. They're freelance. So you start way outside and then you bring big ideas in, and then those ideas can get created and they can get projected to the world.
Do you think the writer's strike will have an impact?
Big time. That is going to change a lot of things.
Before we go, I just want to answer probably sort of, I agree. I think there's a top-down legislation you got to figure it out. But I also think there's a bit of a bottoms up, and I think often people within the group, within the industries know most. And I have to say, we are still early days, but there's actually a well-known sort of like this problem started in film with, it's a well-known stuff, but video game addiction or music week or something, like well-known thing. So within the community, we're grappling with it. And then I would actually sort of track that to the games, and I would actually say the games is probably one of the most mobile games are it's this an A/B test on how to maximize dopamine addiction. And literally, every mobile game is a dopamine addiction. And they know it, and they exploit it. And the other games, and it's well documented. And so, but already in the games industry, for days, you're seeing makers and coders, and developers, game designers sort of push back on that itch. And so we're seeing that. Again, it's sort of grassroots. I think it's going to be quite as effective top down to help, but it's sort of like
Combination probably is a great way to go at it in both directions.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I want to hold off on that question. I want to show the video that you brought so we can talk about some of the bridges to be built with the university and the university community. Part of the whole purpose of this building is to bring folks like you here and talk about these subjects in a forum like this. So I'm really glad we could do that. So I'm going to show the video that you brought, Chris, to advertise the opportunity with the Television Academy, right? Find it on my desktop. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? You want to intro it?
Sure, this is, so I will say that this was given to me by the Television Academy. Their internship program is part of the foundation, it's their nonprofit side of the organization. So just so you know, their internship program is industry-wide, paid year-round. They are paid internships for college students across the United States, and they're hosted by a lot of companies that are Los Angeles-based, including HBO, Disney, Sonderland, DreamWorks, Small Shine, and Bunny Murray Productions, just to name a few. The program, from firsthand experience, is extraordinary. It's a really good one to look at, and a great touchstone if you're looking to have any sort of relationship with the entertainment industry or work in the entertainment.
With that.
Foundation is really helping to change what the landscape of TV looks like. There's a shift now in the kinds of stories that are being allowed to be told, and the Television Academy Foundation is helping to amplify those voices.
This internship program changed my life and made me realize that I can be the next Shonda Rhimes, maybe.
Different ethnicities, different backgrounds, and it's amazing. You're just bringing something new to the industry.
It really set me up for success in my career. I don't remember this ever happening, you know, sitting down and having this kind of conversation about Latinos or the Latinx experience in Hollywood. The things that we're beginning to do on Grey's Anatomy is say, please submit actors with disabilities. Why are we only seeing able-bodied people? There's nothing about this patient who says he can't be deaf.
We're illustrating this idea that we are indeed everywhere, even on TV.
Every piece of information that we get is taken back to the classroom.
The session with the women directors was amazing.
All the access that we've had to these people has just been eye-opening for me. I've always loved the interviews. To have them chronicled and to have their essence on tape and on film for future generations, I think is fantastic.
The legacy matters a bit. To sit here and imagine somebody watching this in 50 years is kind of interesting.
This is for all the women in animation that have finally made it.
This award means so much to us, but not just us, but also the LGBT community. Thank you to the Television Academy Foundation.
I just love the Television Academy Foundation reaches back and anoints the next generation.
I was a 20-year-old kid and I was sitting in rooms with Barry Diller. Who else gives you a chance like that?
I absolutely owe my career to the internship program. I wouldn't be here today. Thank you, Academy. It's been a great 21 years. Thank you.
Sorry, you asking about what are the tools? What are the jobs, the roles? Mhm.
So the trick is that the world has become, we were talking about this earlier, the really exciting thing that's happened in the 100 billion years since I was here is that it's so much easier to have tools on your phone, you know, accessible. Like I said, we used to have to like sneak into government facilities to do stuff. And now, you know, the company Unreal is really dedicated to helping independent filmmakers learn how to use it and have basic technologies and have accessible stuff so you can shoot virtual sets. Like, you know, and again, like they're thinking of it in terms of this large corporation taking their engine and reframing it for the content creation for Obi-Wan Kenobi, so that when they're shooting, it's really awesome for us practically, because instead of being in Tunisia, Ewan's shooting, he's on the thing, and then they wrap, and he's in Manhattan Beach. So he walks 20 feet into this big, beautiful dressing room with tile floors and cleans up and goes home. And I was standing on set, and instead of being in Tunisia, which is beautiful, but kind of sucks to be at for 3 months, I'm 28 minutes away from my house, and on the way home, I get in. But the thing is that it's the accessibility of these tools for you guys so that you can create. It's way easier to shoot. Like Chris's son just shot a ton of stuff outside on green screen. Well, it's way easier to come to the campus and probably get time in one of the rooms here to work out, you know, some kind of interactive space with particles and dancers and collapsing architectural things that weren't possible in physical space, coordinated, I'm spitballing, but really wild ideas that you have that now instead of having to go and sneak in at night and make do with it, because it sucks if you finish at 6 in the morning and you're really tired for your Film 101 lecture the next day. And as you guys all know, the professor will see you in the back and they'll pick you out and go, what did you think about ashes and diamonds? And you're like, so it's this accessibility, it's the accessibility to tools, and then seeing how these guys are using it and going, oh, and then having us talk to you and go, do whatever you want to do. Because what I count is you seeing this amazing stuff that they're creating, and that being sort of a spark for then your fire to do your thing. What's your focus of study?
Awesome. Perfect. So here's the other, we're going to use your kid as the example, Chris, because it fits so well in all of this. So the interesting thing is we were talking about the democratization of technology is a great enabler. It's also a great crippler, but the accessibility to distribution is no longer a problem. If you want somebody to see the thing you make, that is not a problem. And if you whine about it, stop. Now, if you want to get paid, that's a different story. Then comes the tool sets to do amazing things that you only could see in a Hollywood film. But by God, now those tool sets are free and you can go at it. But the one thing that Chris pointed out is somebody fucked up the audio. Right? I can give you amazing tools. I can now give you ubiquitous distribution. The thing you have to learn is what to do with all of those things and the fundamentals that we were talking about. We're like, what is the thing we could tell students today is, for God's sake, pay attention to fundamentals. Because it's somebody in the tool chain screwed up and they have bad audio and they're trying to fix it. Okay, right? Like, no matter how powerful tool, amazing, ProRes, high definition on this thing is, there's still things you got to think about. There's still the art of being a producer, right? I got to put these things together. I can't just because I throw you an amazing high-end tool doesn't mean that magic is going to happen.
Design or whatever you use, whatever technology brings you, you still have to have an opinion of it. What did I create that I like?
And John,
Like just like that looks good, and know that. That's where there's a misnomer of like, oh, all these tools are gonna like replace the human factor, but the human factor actually has an opinion. That's the difference.
Goes back to your original quote, the main job of a producer is making choices.
and it is discussion earlier, he said it's about intention. I think there is the art of intention, which applies to anything here, which is, look, we're all here for a finite amount of time, and what we all